see in this is in this wheel, right? So the first one, right, we covered right understanding, which is 4 noble truths, and the 4th noble truth is actually the Eightfold Path, right? Hopefully it's not too confusing. So the way leading to end of the suffering is actually the 4th noble truth. So this is the way, right, the Eightfold Path. So now we're going to go to the next spoke, which is right thought. Right thought. So right thought is actually the things you think that can lead to end the stress and the suffering, right? So earlier on, we talked about the 3 kinds of desire: greed, hatred, delusion. So right thought is actually the opposite. Right thought is actually the opposite: non-greed, non-hatred, non-delusion. So this is very important for meditation and also in your daily life, you know, how kind of attitudes, your intention, in your moment-to-moment kind of thought processes. So we are going to emphasize this in the meditation. So this will be my mantra, right? The right thought, non-greed, non-hatred, non-delusion. So I will repeat this over and over again in the meditation, sort of like to remind you. So what is non-greed, right? So non-greed can be any kind of thoughts that can reduce greed, right? So in the meditation later, I'll introduce this meditation called the Asubha meditation, which is the impurities of the body meditation. It's a bit like understanding your human biology and anatomy. So basically, we are going to visualize the body parts. So this is one of the exercises. There are many ways to practice non-greed. A person can practice charity, generosity, etc. To reduce greed, right? And the next one is non-hatred. So non-hatred, opposite of hate is love, right? So we are practicing loving kindness. So this is the second thought. And third, thought non-delusion, right? So earlier on we talked about delusion is a kind of belief that we will sort of be permanent. We will live forever. We want to be healthy forever. We want to be young forever. So non-delusion is the contemplation or reflection on impermanence, right? There are many kinds of reflections, but for this case, we are emphasizing a lot on this impermanence, rising and falling, birth and death, whatever labels you want to call it. Okay, so this covers right thought. So the next one is speech, action, and livelihood, right? So this one I won't really touch into it because today is meditation session, right? However, why we have this thing? Because meditation is not about just this short, maybe 1 hour sitting, right? Meditation is actually a holistic affair. It's a mental cultivation. So it carries on with you in your daily activities, the things you say. There has to be this pleasant speech. So earlier on, we talk about this, for those refuge taking, we have this musawada, yeah? So for those who taken the refuge and the 5 precepts, then this right speech come into play. So the precepts to avoid lying. But total there are four kinds of right speech. This lying, harsh speech, idle gossip, and divisive speech. Right? You want to split up communities, say wrong thing, say vulgar language and that kind of stuff. So all these we try to avoid, right? So this is right speech. And right action. So basically right action, again, for those who are taking the precepts, abstain from killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, and taking of this alcohol, right? So we avoid all this. So this to keep a clear mind. Why we avoid killing is again to sort of avoid this hatred, right? When we kill, we have the intention of this wanting to destroy. So we minimize hatred. Stealing, same thing, because of greed, you want to take something nice. So we reduce this greed, right? And this sexual misconduct, right? So now this retreat is a 5 precept retreat. Now usually retreats are 8 precepts. So 8 precept retreat will be abstain from sexual activity altogether. But for 5 precepts, it will be avoid cheating your spouse, right? Avoid having another external affair, right? For those who are married or pato, engaged, whatever. Okay, then the next one is avoid of this alcohol, right? Taking of these intoxicants, drugs, all these to keep a clear mind. So all this is important in your daily life, right? Okay, and the next one is right livelihood, which is actually to basically have an honest job, right? Honest and proper kind of job doesn't hurt and harm anybody. So this is important. If a person does something harmful and has guilty conscience all the way, you sort of transgress your precepts, and then you have a hard time meditating later. And okay, so for let's say non-Buddhist, right? Basically, you just whatever you do, just keep your conscience clear. And actually, the law of the country is much more than the precepts, right? So some non-religious person will say, "Hey, I don't believe in any religion, so how, right?" So so many laws in the country, which is more than the monastic precepts even. So it's not easy to follow them all, so try your best. But the main thing is right thought. The whole idea is to train this right thought. If a person just hold on to the precepts for the sake of holding the precepts, then they're as good as wayang, right? We just put on a show, don't do anything, then we are not really training the mind to be purer. So the whole idea is to train the intention to be purer, right? Okay, and next one is right effort. So this effort is got to do with the wholesome thoughts we talked about earlier, loving kindness, compassion, all these wholesome things. So effort would be any unwholesome thought. If a person has unwholesome thought, then we try to remove them, try to overcome them. So this is the first right effort. Second right effort is if there is no unwholesome thought, no negative thought, then we maintain this state of mind without this negative thought. And third effort would be if there is no wholesome thought. Now, if a person doesn't have loving kindness, doesn't have compassion, doesn't have wisdom, for example, then we develop them, we cultivate them. And the fourth right effort will be if you already have those positive qualities, wholesome thoughts, then we maintain and perfect them. So this is the four kinds of right effort. So to give a short analogy, right? So example would be during the Buddha's time, he was talking, right, to a group of monks, his disciples. So he's asking a question: how often do you reflect on death? There's this recollection in Buddhism. One day I'm subject to death, right? So this is the kind of meditation practice. So one of the monks, he raised his hand. No, he raised his hand, not in this Zoom chat as well. He raised his hand, and he said, every year he contemplate on death because it's his birthday, right? So 1 year closer to death. So the Buddha said, no, too slow, 1 year, right? So you need to think of, on your birthday, you just think of this, then what happened to 364 days, right? What are you thinking, right? Then the next student, he raised his hand and said, every season, last time in India, there are 3 seasons. Now it's the rainy season, there's a winter season, and also a summer season, right? So the Buddha also said, too slow, not good enough. And another one raised his hand and said, every month, right? Every full moon or new moon. And the Buddha said, no, too slow. Another one, every week, also too slow. Another one, every day, also too slow. And the last student, right? The model answer student, you say, every breath, every time I breathe in, right? I might die. When I breathe out, I also might die. Then the Buddha said, yes, this is the standard answer. This is the kind of, we call effort. We call the rate, the RPM, right? The rate of contemplation. So this is the kind of effort required in meditation. So a lot of times people sit and meditate and they think, sit there, do nothing, think nothing, think nothing. Not true. In meditation, there's a lot of right thought. Right? It's a kind of skill. It's kind of skill required, lots of effort, lots of right thought required. So it's a kind of cultivation. It's not to sit there and do nothing. All right, okay. And the next one will be right mindfulness. Okay, so right mindfulness is a very long topic, but yeah, so this is the name of your society also, right? Mahasatipatthana, right? So we talk about right mindfulness. So in short, right mindfulness, for now, I will just simply say is mindful of the impermanence of your body, feeling, minds, and Dhamma. So this is the 4 aspects. I will go through it later because a lot of things are repetitive, like the 5 precepts and so on. I mean, the 5 aggregates. A lot of things overlap with the 4 foundations of mindfulness. So I will cover that later. And the last one is right concentration. So again, I'll cover that later. So when the mind is calm and peaceful and certain techniques are applied, you develop certain kinds of concentration, right? So this is the whole gist, yeah, the basic idea of this concept before we meditate, right? So next slide, please. Okay, so yeah, before I had this Zoom retreat session, or before this pandemic, I was actually having a few runs on these courses, right? This basic meditation course at Palelai Temple. So the model is actually based on this Meghiya Sutta, Meghiya, right? So Meghiya Sutta is actually a name of a monk. He's a new monk that is attending to the Buddha. So the Buddha and this Venerable Meghiya was walking along, and they came across this bamboo forest or mangrove forest, a forest. So this new monk, right, he thinks that, okay, he wants to practice meditating alone in solitude in this nice forest. So he asked the Buddha's permission. Buddha, can I go and meditate in that forest? And the Buddha looked at him and told him, no, you wait for more companions, wait for more people before you meditate together in a group. So he was confused. Sometimes the Buddha say, hey, I thought meditation is supposed to be an alone thing, right? You meditate alone, right? Buddha encouraged, sometimes Buddha encouraged people to live in solitude, meditate alone. How come he asked me to go with a group? So for a second time, he asked the Buddha, right? Can I go and practice alone in the forest? The Buddha said no. Third time, the Buddha said no. And the 4th time, he sort of insisted, and the Buddha said, okay, you go, yeah? Go ahead to the forest. So he went to the forest, he meditated, and for some time, maybe for a few days or even a week, he struggled. He had a lot of problems, cannot still the mind, cannot meditate properly. Lots of restless thoughts, thoughts of greed, thoughts of hatred, and etc., etc. So all these things trouble the mind. So he cannot have peace, right? A lot of people, a lot of meditators have this stereotype. Or you want to meditate, must go to the forest, must go to the cave and meditate. So this is one example, right? A person without proper instruction and they go and meditate alone, they have a lot of problems. So this Meghiya came back to the Buddha and asked, how come when he's meditating alone, lots of these problems, the mind cannot settle down, no peace, right? So the Buddha told him, right, the spiritual, right, the mind has certain levels of spiritual maturity. If the mind is not yet spiritually matured, you cannot meditate alone. Yeah, you need a group of companions, these spiritual friends, spiritual guides, right, to give you some peer pressure, positive peer pressure, talk to you about the Dhamma, talk to you about the Vinaya, that means the moral ethics, anything positive, just to keep your mind inclined to the positive side. And only after some time, then you can go and meditate alone. So before you meditate alone, these are the few kind of practices that the Buddha prescribed. So the first one is this loving kindness. Right? Loving kindness is to overcome hatred. We talked about it earlier. And the next one is impurities of the body. Overcome greed. And breath is to overcome the restless mind, the scattered mind. So the breath is to unify the mind, which is concentration. And the last one is this insight meditation. So when the mind is calm, then you use that calm mind to investigate the nature of the mind, right? So this is to gather wisdom, to gain wisdom. So this is actually the instruction from the Buddha to this Venerable Meghiya. So this is the gist of the course. So basically, throughout the course, I will try to give a routine to sort of let you take away and practice. Okay, next. Okay, so basically these are the things we won't be doing, right? There are so many kinds of meditation practices out there. So like on the left, you can see there are Qigong practices. Some people come in and meditate, they have the preconceived idea, oh, meditate is to heal the body, make the body strong, or give you certain abilities, and the kind of stuff. So like on the left, you can see sometimes some people have this ability, right, to use the energy, you know, this we call it qi, right, breath energy to protect their bodies, right? So they call it qigong, right? Qigong meditation. Right, so this one is one kind of training, but we are not doing this. This actually we can call it post canonical kind of meditation, right? They're developed after the Buddha's time, even for, let's say, the yoga kind of chakra system. If you do your research, it's developed after the Buddha's time. The pre-Buddhist meditation, interestingly, are actually the jhanas. Right? So, and the next one, the center picture is healing, like Reiki, right? Reiki and Qigong. So the different cultures, they use different names. So we are not doing any form of healing, right? If healing was really widely practiced by the Buddhist monastics in the Buddha's time, it would have been mentioned in the monastic code, in the Vinaya, right? So there's a segment in the monastic code that mention all the things allowed by the Buddha for healing and medicine practices. So the ancient kind of Ayurvedic practices or alternative therapies, even like urine drinking and that kind of stuff, but never mention anything about energy healing. And the last one would be these chakras and auras, right? So some people have the idea, I come and meditate, and later I can have the ability to see things, right? See people's aura and whatever not. So no, in this meditation, we are not doing that. There are some machines that take pictures of auras. So there was one time on Facebook, I was logging on Facebook and I saw many of my friends, they have very colorful profile pictures, a lot of these kind of aura, rainbow colors. And I thought, hey, how come my friends are so interested in this kind of holistic spirituality now, yeah? So, and I started to read the bottom of the picture, and there's some fine print, and they mention LGBTQ Pride Day or something like that. So this is a bit misleading. So it's my fault on my part. So yes, so these things we won't be doing in the meditation. Next. All right, so the next one is we are going to talk about two kinds of meditation widely coined or termed in the Buddhist community. One is called the samatha practice, and one is called the vipassana practice. So this one can be actually found in the suttas, right from the scripture, but they give a different name. So the first kind of training is called directed training. So it's a modern equivalent to samatha practice. So it's basically to strengthen the mind. So a modern kind of analogy would be strength training, right? And the vipassana would be like an endurance training. So there are two kinds of training. So the first training, if a person were to focus on a meditation object, right? When they focus meditation object, then it will lead him to peace. Right? Certain things will, of course, come up. It will be a joyful experience. So this is it's a kind of gradual process before our mind is peace and concentrated. So a lot of meditators, when they practice samatha practice, they want to force the mind to be still, right? They want to force the mind to be calm. So by doing so, right, no joy. And the more they do it, the more stressful, the more suffering, the more anxiety. So in the guided session later, then we'll talk more about this right thought, right? Non-greed, non-hatred. Next. Okay, then the next kind of training would be the undirected training, which is the modern term we can call vipassana kind of meditation. So when the mind is calm, after the mind is calm, then you let it be free. No, you let it be undirected. That means you let it scatter like what we are actually doing now, a normal scattered mind. So when the mind is scattered, then you can contemplate and understand the workings of the mind. So a person can be mindful of the four foundations of mindfulness: body, feeling, mind, and the Dhamma. That means the phenomenon. Right. So once this is done, then this is a two kind of training. So the first kind, the directed, is actually to give mind strength, and the next one, undirected, is using the strengthened mind to complete your journey. Right. So this is the two kinds of practices. Okay. Next. Okay. So by knowing these two kinds of practices, different schools, right? They will come up with different kinds of strategies, different kind of techniques. And sometimes the students of each school will argue, "Oh, my technique is correct. No, your technique is not correct," and vice versa. Okay, so in the Buddha's time, Venerable Ananda is actually the attendant of the Buddha, so he's the foremost in memory, right? So he's basically memorized all the teachings from the Buddha, right? So he did an interview. He did an interview with all the enlightened monks. So he basically did a survey and asked them, "Oh, what kind of technique you do before you reach enlightenment?" So this is the question he asked. So he asked all the enlightened monks, and basically he came back with four general kinds of replies. So the first group of monks, they got enlightened through tranquility first. That means through calming the mind, samatha practice. And after the mind is calm, and next they move on to this vipassana, which is to contemplate the true nature of phenomenon, and they got enlightened. So usually this group of monks were already like the ascetics, right? Before they met the Buddha, they were maybe probably from another ascetic religion and another samana sect. And when they met the Buddha, then they asked how did Buddha practice and vice versa. And they tried out the Buddha's these teachings on the impermanence, whatever not, and they got enlightened. So this is the first group of monks. And the next group of monks is the academics, the scholars, right? So they do insight first, right? They contemplate, they're very philosophical, they ask a lot of questions, and after doing so, then the mind will come down, right? The vipassana. I will go through that later in the later part of the talk. Or even meditators, when they observe the nature of the workings of the mind, right? So after doing so, then the mind will calm down. They have another kind of tranquility, another kind of samatha, and they got enlightened. So this is the second kind of practitioner. And the third kind of practitioner is a combination, both tranquility and insight. So this is actually mostly the Buddha's invention. He invented or rather rediscovered this technique, how to combine both samatha and vipassana together. So later in the practical session, most of the practices will have a mixture of tranquility and insight. Right, it's a good mix. So this one is a good general kind of practice for most people. And the last one would be Zen koan style. Of course, in the sutta they won't mention Zen koan style. The sutta they mention the practitioner has certain doubt in the Dhamma. So they question, they keep asking and asking. They still have the doubt. So they keep asking the whole day and night. They keep asking us until they got enlightened. Right. So this is very similar to the Zen tradition, right? So the Zen master will ask the student a certain question, and then the student will have this question, and they keep asking until they reach enlightenment. So sometimes they might have this instant enlightenment. Sometimes they take longer, right? So things like the popular one, what's the sound of one hand clapping, or maybe like if they keep chanting the Buddha's name, they chant, then the sound become autopilot, Then they never chant really, but then the sound is still there. Then the master will ask the student, who is chanting, who is the one chanting? So they have to ask. So it's a philosophical question, but the whole idea is not to answer in academic or scholastic manner, right? Is to basically, try to sort of stun your perception and, really understand how this mental volition really arises. Okay, so this is this Yoganada Sutta in tandem. So basically, it's like cross training. So you can actually combine both strength and this endurance training together. Okay, next. Okay, so after knowing the two kinds of general meditations, then we are going to talk about these 40 objects of meditation. So there are so many variety of meditation around, right? So in the suttas, there are probably more. So last time they used this metaphor, 84,000 Dhamma doors. So it's like infinite possibilities, right? So not inside this list of 40, there are things like the golden flower. In the Buddha's time, the Buddha made a golden flower for another monk to meditate and go enlightened. Right, not inside here. And another sutta, Upajjhatthana Sutta, the 5 contemplations. The Buddha mentioned a person contemplating, I will get old one day, I will get sick one day, I'll be separated from my loved ones, not inside here also. Yeah, so there are many things in the sutta. So this is actually 40 meditation objects from the Visuddhimagga. There's a previous book, Vimuttimagga, 38 meditation objects. So now here 40. So of course, most of the modern Theravada schools will use this as example, right? 40 meditation objects of meditation. Okay, so I'll just give a short brief through. There are different possibilities. So on the left are mostly visual kinds of meditation, require imagination on that. So like imagine the corpse rotting and decaying and that kind of stuff. So the first few on the left is basically have a disc, something earth device. So they stare on a clay pot or something. So they stare on something stagnant, right? So yeah, something like that. Okay, so on the right side, so on the right column would be something more popular, right? More popular, so like the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha, virtue, charity, and the Devas. So these are the 6 kind of recollections can be practiced. So for the Greek contemplation of the Buddha, the traditional Theravada Buddhism will be, reciting the 9 qualities of the Buddha, Itipiso Bhagava, Arahant Sama Sambuddha, etc., etc. But in the Thai tradition, they shortcut, they use 2 syllables, they just use Buddho. Right? They just use one word, Buddho. So which means the awakening mind. Right? So this is one way to recollect the Buddha. In the Dhamma, the same thing, recollect the teachings, and the Sangha, recollect the qualities of the disciples, right? The saints, the Aryas. So, okay, so for let's say other tradition, let's say the Mahayana Buddhists, they can include the Bodhisattvas inside, right? All the other Buddhas of the other world systems, Amitabha Buddha, Medicine Buddha, whatever. So it's also part of the contemplation. Okay, so how about contemplation of virtue? Right. So the first three, Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha. This one is uniquely Buddhist, right? How about virtue? So this one non-Buddhist, right? Even a non-religious person can also contemplate on this virtue and contemplation of charity. It's both, right? So virtue is basically your moral ethics, the moral principles, the things you stand by, right? What are the code of conduct you stand by? So if a person were to contemplate this, you give them this joy, a moral kind of joy and upliftment. And if you do it, have this right effort, the mind can actually enter calm and peace and concentration. And of course, eventually lead to enlightenment. So very interesting, right? And in the charity, this Dana Sutta, the Buddha also mentioned a person can even reach Anagami, right? Dana Sutta. A person to contemplate, the intention. What is the intention of helping others? Their intention of doing charity. Okay, and how about devas? Contemplation of devas. So, for even those, let's say, monotheistic or polytheistic faiths, right? They contemplate on their deity, on their god or gods, right? That is also a kind of meditation, right? So it's acknowledged in Buddhism. Okay, so there are so many deities. I won't want to mention them. Okay, then the next one is mindfulness of this death. Right, earlier on I gave the example, one day we'll pass away. Okay, so the one highlighted in yellow is the one that we'll be covering. One highlighted in yellow. Right, so in the meditation we'll be touching on some of those, right? Okay, so of course in the Thai forest tradition, the popular practice would be Buddho and Asubha practice. Right, so the Buddho mindfulness of the Buddha is the Samatha practice, and the impurities of the body is their Vipassana practice to get insight and wisdom. So this is the Thai forest tradition. So we move on to the next one. Okay, so to further understand why there are so many systems of meditation nowadays, is sometimes it has to do with both philosophical and even sometimes down to sectarian or even geopolitical differences in the different Buddhist schools. So I won't go to the history of Buddhism and the kind of stuff. So, but on the left is the Mahayana school, or we call the Northern School Buddhism, and that includes the Vajrayana school at the bottom right. Both of them are the Northern School Buddhism. Right? Why they have so many schools? Right? Because they have these many pre-Buddhist schools. They have a coalition of many Buddhist schools. So that's why their scriptures are more than the Theravada Buddhist scriptures. So their Tripitaka is more than the Tipitaka actually. So our Theravada Tipitaka, so if you look at the right top corner, so this is the Theravada schools of Buddhism. So the styles I'm using, I will attribute mostly to, if you look at the Sri Lankan branch. Sri Lankan branch, there's this Siam Nikaya, but not inside here, mostly by this late Venerable Amata Gavesi, right? So most of the techniques would mostly be from that school of thought. That is, I learned from there before I became a monk. So that greatly influenced the style and the guided meditation later. So of course, there are so many schools. This one is not an accurate and comprehensive list. Like in Myanmar, there are like probably more than 9 schools of Buddhism. Sri Lanka also, there are so many schools. Okay, so of course, early on in the introduction, Terence have mentioned I'm in the Thai tradition, this Dhammayut Nikaya, right? So again, this is not a accurate depiction because both Dhammayut and Mahanikaya schools of Buddhism have forest movements, have forest traditions. Okay, next slide. Okay, so to give a brief idea, you know what I'm talking about. Anything in red in the south, right? In the south, like Sri Lanka, Myanmar, Thailand, Laos, Cambodia. So these are the Theravada schools. Anything in the orange and yellow, these are northern schools of Buddhism. So like in the orange one are the Vajrayana schools. Okay, next. Okay, so I'm going to have a short break for now. Any questions at the moment? Or you want to have the Q&A later? Okay, I have the Q&A later. So I will do a guided session now. Right, guided session now. A guided session before my lunchtime, right? So I can maximum last until maybe 10:30 or 10:45. Okay, so we sit in a comfortable posture. Okay, because if you're using Zoom, right? So I will encourage you all to sit on a chair for this short sitting. Even to sit on the floor, it's all right, no problem. Because now we only have a short time. Later in the longer sessions of guided meditation, then I will show you the picture, how to sit properly. Okay, so now we just find a comfortable position. So basically, it's just a run through on the steps or instructions. Let's see how far we can go. Okay, so once we are comfortable and relaxed, then we close our eyes. Okay, and the first phase of the meditation, we are doing this Asubha meditation, impurities of the body. So it's a bit like visualization, right? A bit of visualization. So we are going to first visualize the hair, all your hair. So like imagine looking at the mirror, so you visualize the hair. So a normal person, untrained person, when they think of their hair, they'll go to the extremes, right? Greed and hatred. So greed will be, oh, my hair is so beautiful, I like my hair, yeah, my hair is so nice. So that will tend to go towards greed. And the other spectrum will be hatred, right? Your hair is so messy, I don't like my hair, I don't like this fashion. So this is another extreme, hatred. So we are trying to avoid these both extremes. So we are practicing the middle way. So the middle way is actually not the 50% of both greed and hatred, yeah, but actually to avoid both greed and hatred. So this is where my mantra comes in, right? Non-greed, non-hatred, right thought. So the first thing we are going to think is we are going to wish the hair well and happy. Right? So the phrasing in your thought is very important. We don't go and say, I wish my hair. No, don't go and wish my hair well and happy. We're going to wish all the hairs well and happy from the head. All the hairs from the head, may they be well and happy. And we sweep down and wish all the hairs from head to toe, may they be well and happy. So this is to promote thoughts of non-hatred. And the next thought we are going to introduce is thoughts of non-greed and also a bit of non-delusion. So basically what happens is all these hairs, they are subject to birth and death. Yeah, birth, aging, sickness, and death. Right. So all these hairs, they grow long. Right. They get oily, sweaty, dirty, and they turn white when it's old. Sometimes have hair problems, cracks. And the hair, they fall off every day. So if you do it correctly, right, if there's a right thought, non-greed, non-hatred, right, when the desire is reduced, and by right, there should be, you should feel joyful, right, in meditation. So if a person meditate and they feel stressed, then something is wrong. Right? Meditation should be a very happy process. And then we can further ask ourselves, right? So this is the Zen question. Are these hairs truly self? Are they truly you? Right? If the hairs are truly you, that means you have total control over this birth and death of the hair, right? So can you tell the hair not to go through this birth and death? And the next part of the body we're going to think is our nails. Right? So we're going to wish all the nails well and happy. So all the fingernails, may they be well and happy. And all the toenails, may they be well and happy. And all the nails are subject to this birth and death. So the nails will grow long, they get dirty, they collect dirt. And they go through wear and tear. These scratches, cracks, or even chip off. And then we can ask ourselves, are these nails truly self? Can you tell the nails not to go through this birth and death? Next, we are going to think of our teeth. All the teeth in our mouth. We wish all the teeth well and happy. All the upper rows of teeth, may they be well and happy. and all the lower rows of teeth, may they be well and happy. And all these teeth, they are subject to this birth and death, and they change in shape and size. They get dirty, they change in color and turn yellowish and turn brown, and they have tooth decay and turn black, and have tooth cavities, and they grow holes, and they get shaky, and eventually they fall off. And then we can ask ourselves, are these teeth truly self? Can we tell the teeth not to go through this birth and death? And the next part of the body we're going to visualize is our skin. We're going to wish all the skin well and happy. So the skin is the organ that surrounds the whole body. So from head to toe, we are going to wish all the skin well and happy. And all the skin, they are subject to is birth, aging, sickness, and death. So the skin, they will get oily, dirty, sweaty. And they wrinkle when it's old. And there's lots of skin problems here and there. Yeah, when it's dry, it cracks. Skin irritation, it turns red. You have rashes, boils, pimples, etc. And our skin fall off every day. Lots of dead skin fall off. Every time you rub onto something, right, some skin fall off. And then we can ask ourselves, are these skin truly self? Can we tell the skin not to go through this birth and death? And we are moving on to the next phase of meditation. So for the first phase, we just do these external parts of the body. We're not going to go through the entire human biology and anatomy. Right. So the next thing we're going to do is the breath meditation. We are sort of learning how to breathe. So basically now we just need to feel below the nostril, above the upper lip. So this one doesn't require any visualization, right? We're using our sense of touch. So basically just feel the breath. So to unify the mind, we just use one small area, right? Below the nostril, above the upper lip. There's no need to feel the entire our breathing respiratory system. Right? No need to feel the trachea, your lungs and diaphragm. Right? Just below the nostril, above the upper lip. So the key emphasis is gentle attention. No need to force the mind, and don't control the breath. Let your in and out breathing be this natural reflex action. Okay, so whenever we inhale, right, we wish the breath well. Whenever we exhale, we wish the breath happy. So very similar to what we're doing like just now. So in the breath meditation, we are not training the breath. We are not doing Qigong meditation. We are not storing any breath or vital energy. Just like earlier on, we are not training our hair. We are not training our teeth. We are not training our skin. Right? So similarly, we are not training the breath. We're actually using the breath as an object, and we are training this mind to reduce this clinging. So the first important step is to make friends with the breath. Very important. Inhale well, exhale happy. Never fight with the breath. Some meditators, like I mentioned earlier, they love to force the mind to be still. Yeah, so any force towards the mind is a form of violence. So that is why we need to have loving kindness. Okay? So by understanding the cause and effect, right, by reducing desire, and the effect will be the mind will calm down naturally by itself. So the calming down, you just treat it as a byproduct. We focus more on the process of reducing this desire. So we have this loving kindness. So once the mind is generally calm, then you can introduce the other thought, which is this impermanence, the birth and death of the breath. So early on the example, right? Every breath moment there's birth and death. So we are going to observe that. So because the breath is invisible, so we only can rely on the sense of touch, right? The different sensations. So we can categorically distinguish the different sensations into four kinds. We call it the four elements: earth, fire, wind, and water. Nothing magical about it, but earth represents the hard and soft kind of sensation we feel in the breath. So when you breathe in and out, if there are any changes in the density of the air, then there's the birth and death of the earth element. Fire represents the hot and cold. So when you breathe in and out, if there are any changes in the temperature, then there's birth and death of the fire element. Wind being movement, right? So fast and slow, long and short movements. So when you breathe in and out, any changes in your breathing rate, then there's a birth and death of the wind element. And water element represents the moist and dry sensations. So when you breathe in and out, any changes in humidity, then there's a birth and death of the water element. So in the meditation, there's no need to purposely generate, right, or create these experiences. Right? We just feel the breath, whichever sensation that is most obvious to you, then you observe is birth and death or the impermanence of the breath. So by observing this impermanence of the breath, right, observing this Dhamma, and there's even further settling of the mind, the reduction of desire. So keep doing or keep observing this impermanence until the mind settle, until it cannot settle anymore. And due to the time constraint, I'm going to move on to the last phase of meditation, which is to radiate loving kindness. Radiate loving kindness. So using our calm mind, right, or rather relatively calm mind, we are going to wish all beings in front well and happy. And then we come back to ourselves, and we are going to wish all beings behind well and happy. So this one don't need to visualize anybody, just use a general sense of direction. And we are going to come back to ourselves. And we are going to wish all beings on the left, may they be well and happy. And we come back to ourselves. And we're going to wish, may all beings on the right, may they be well and happy. And we come back to ourselves. And we wish all beings above, may they be well and happy. And we come back to ourselves. And we're going to wish all beings below well and happy. And then we can come back to ourselves. And this time we fill this entire body with loving kindness from head to toe. We wish every part of the body well and happy. And eventually we are going to radiate loving kindness in all the directions. So we wish all beings above, below, and all across, may they be well and happy. So we first fill your entire house with loving kindness. May all beings in this house be well and happy. And then we are going to extend this loving kindness to the entire neighborhood. May all beings in this neighborhood be well and happy. And then we can extend this loving kindness to the entire planet. May all beings on earth be well and happy. And eventually we are extending this loving kindness to the entire universe. May all beings be well and happy. So we try to maintain this boundless loving kindness as long as possible. In the Karaniya Metta Sutta, right, the teachings of loving kindness, the Buddha mentioned, if a person can maintain this boundless loving kindness, be it standing, sitting, walking, or lying down, and this is the highest conduct and the highest practice. So, so this will actually be your assignment throughout the entire self-practice, right? For the next maybe a few hours. So the whole idea is to have mindfulness of this loving kindness to generate enough merit and to uplift the mind. Yeah, very important. Yeah. So if not, there will be difficulty in the next sitting session, because the next one will be a longer sitting and a bit more technical. So you need to generate and now this wholesome mind state, this loving kindness. So we sort of habitualize this state of mind. Yeah, it's just like if a person is, let's say, angry, right? They can be angry the whole day at work, eating, can get angry, even reading a book can get angry. So loving kindness is just the opposite, right? So we just try to maintain this positive emotion as much as possible throughout the whole day, right? And we'll see you all later in the next session, right? So what time do I need to log in?
10 minutes before 1. Okay.
Okay, sure. All right. Okay,
Okay.
so yeah, may you all be well and happy. See you all later. Yeah, 1 o'clock. Right.
Enjoy your
So
lunch, Bante.
okay, all right.
We'll
So
do the same.
okay.
Okay, that wraps up for this first session for today. The Zoom meeting will be ended now. So we'll open again the floor at 12:50. See you all soon. Bye-bye.